Welcome everyone to this week's Tarot Tips. We're looking at the Magician. Just for purposes of understanding, I want you to know that when I talk about common mistakes, I'm talking about all of the students that I've taught common mistakes as they're learning, actual mistakes that I've seen in reading the cards both by professionals, and I often get asked questions by individuals who are reading for themselves or reading for friends, and it's very casual and all the rest of it. So these are the common mistakes in these cards, or the common misunderstandings. When I mention that kind of thing, that's what I'm talking about specifically. It isn't to say everybody makes those mistakes, but they're just the most common ones. The idea of the tarot tips for me is to bring a practical understanding of the cards, how to recognize certain things in real life, as opposed to a breakdown of the tarot for tarot enthusiasts per se. Even then, there needs to be a practical application. So the keywords or the keynotes of the Magician are hidden talents, hidden abilities, surprise. Okay, it is also the word challenge. Those three words would be the most noticeable aspects of this card. They embody this card completely. From the hidden talents, the hidden understandings, what we don't know about ourselves, digging deep, if you like, to pull something out of the hat, to pull something out of ourselves to meet a situation. I've often seen it read as, that you get the gift of the talent or you get the little surprise, but there's a price to pay for that. I've never really seen the Magician this way. I always see that the challenge comes first. And when we're faced with a challenge, we've got these tools. And in the Magician, if you've got a Rider-Waite deck or if you've got the Mythic Tarot, I'm not too sure about all of the other decks, but there is a sleight of hand. The tools are laid out and the Magician himself is pointing in different directions. So it's not always clear what's needed. It's not always understood what's actually going on, whether it's with other people's situations. It's not even always necessarily understood what you need to do about it. So you need to dig into those areas of yourself to meet the situation, to meet it in a new way, to do something different, to be a surprise, or you may be surprised. So it's one of those kind of aspects, depending on the cards around it, the question, the draw. Sometimes you need to be surprising. For this, I see, instead of recycling patterns in situations or in challenges that are brought forward, we can find something new within ourselves to bring out. It might surprise other people. If you're used to behaving in a particular way or responding to a situation in a particular way and you behave differently, it forces change. It surprises the audience. It excites them. It creates something new. Everybody's got to start thinking, trying to work it out again, rather than just cycling around, milling step by step around a particular circle, a particular pattern, a particular cycle. As far as talents go, we've all got talents or abilities that we're not aware of. We haven't practiced, we haven't exercised. So your situation may require you to dig a bit deeper too, to see if, okay, instead of just saying I can't do that, instead of just dismissing, this card I quite often would see presented in what I call fatalistic personality types or fatalistic situations, where a person simply says, I'm a Libra, so this is how it is, or this is me, take it or leave it kind of a deal, which is really that they've given up on themselves. It's not that you've given up on them, it's not that anybody else has, but they've given up on themselves, and not just given up on themselves as a person, but given up on their attempting to grow, attempting to be different. So they'll put a nominal effort in sometimes and think that's a huge, big deal. And yet another person can be putting in a huge amount of effort and they may not appreciate that. Those will always lead to challenges. And so the Magician, when it's drawn for you, or if you draw it for yourself, gets drawn from that perspective of digging a little bit deeper, trying a little bit harder, finding something inside yourself that you may not be aware that you had. There are situations that force that into being. When we lose a child, when we go into grief, when we are faced by a dramatic and tragic happenstance, then we are required to dig deep and to find something within ourselves, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's compassion. The Magician can lead to all of those situations as well, that you've got to go inside and find that, pull it out from somewhere, rather than just churning out the usual anger, the usual judgment, the usual blame, whatever it is that you tend to do. Button off and see what you can find different within yourself. As for the challenge, as the challenge comes before the need to be the magician or to recognize the magician. It's not about dishonesty. That's probably the biggest mistake I see, is that reading that somebody's being dishonest. There's cards for that. So we don't need to misinterpret or add stuff to cards. It can mean a person is hiding something from you, but it's more likely to mean that there's something you don't know within the situation. And if you're not careful, if you're the recipient of the magician, then you may learn a hard lesson by not anticipating, by not listening, by not paying attention to where the other person is at or what's going on in that situation. You might miss vital clues, vital details, and be surprised. The surprise can sometimes be a nasty surprise. It can also be a blessing. So it's a real interesting card from that aspect, as the recipient of the magician, where it's played out to you rather than you are the magician. That can be that you accept a job or you sign on a contract, but you haven't read it properly. Rather than it being that the other person's deliberately trying to deceive you, the magician is the illusionist. And so the sleight of hand can be as simple as the fine line, what is it, the little written, the small print in a contract, or it can be what it isn't said when a person is speaking to you. Again, it can be deliberate, but with a magician, it's more about what they're used to. It's more about what's normal for them. It's more about how they usually behave, what's usually put out there, just as a contract always has fine print. We can't be surprised by the fine print we didn't read. And I would say too that we can't be disappointed about what we don't get out of what we don't put into, if you understand that. So we need to be vigilant. We need to pay attention. And when you're not paying attention, things can go a little bit wrong. So I hope that helps you with the magician today, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week with the third card.